Hello! In this video, I'm going to go over the couple of modeling tools used for the Blender Link, the Bevel and the Grid Fill. I'm going to head on over to the Bevel. I have an object already created, go into point edit mode. And I have an extra tool here to help me with selections. I'm going to use some edge selections. You just get the upper half there. Now when using the bevel, first thing you want to do is go to the offset setting and drag it to get a preview of what the bevel will look like. I'll drag it to about there, press the bevel button, and you get a bevel. I'm going to undo that. Going to increase the number of segments to get a more rounded bevel. You got that there. Now you can see it has a round shape. I'm going to undo, change the profile so that it kind of sinks in. See, the bevel kind of has that concave shape to it instead of being outwardly round. Undo that. And the opposite direction, going towards 1, in the profile value, makes it more of a squarish shape instead of rounded. I'm going to undo that and reset the profile to the default of just plain round. And another option is the material assigning a material index. This object only has one material, so if I give it a material index of 1, it'll create anything above 0 actually. Create a new material for the beveled section. There you see it there, gave it a blue material. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to take the offset to a very high value. So even in the preview it starts to look pretty ugly. If I bevel that, get a real mess. Undo, and that's where the clamp overlap option comes in. If I bevel with that option, same offset value, it limits it so you don't get the overlapping geometry. I'm going to undo that and bring my offset back down to a reasonable value. And I think I'll take the material back to just plain. Just going a little closer here. Now the miter outer controls the shape right around here, inside these corners here. Right now it's set to sharp, and this is the result. I'm going to undo. So I've set it to patch and bevel it up. It'll create this kind of shapes. And while I have this, you get these extra lines here. If I undo, if I get rid of the clean geometry option, which is a safety feature, and bevel, then I don't get those extra lines. But you only want to turn off the clean geometry if you know you're going to get a clean mesh. If you get a bad mesh, trueSpace could crash while trying to load the bevel in from Blender. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to leave the clean geometry on. And go on to the next option, which was arc. Bevel that. And here you see it has a round shape on that corner. And now since the miter outer is set to arc, that makes it so the miter inner will also be able to go arc. And that'll give a different result for these upper corners right here. I'm going to... Actually, I need to undo that a couple of times. I got my undos out of order. I'm going to set that back to arc. And when I bevel that, you see it did a different pattern to the mesh in the corners. And I can make that smaller by changing the spread. I'm going to undo the spread really small, see what it looks like. Yeah, it makes it much smaller. But for my money, most of the time I'd want to use just plain old sharp. And I think arc is a nice option for the miter outer. And, oh, right, the intersection. See what the bevel looks like right now. Okay, has a normal bevel. We change the intersection from adjust to cutoff and bevel. Then you get these cutoff corners, like so. And that's everything about the bevel, I think. Oh, right, one more thing. We have an offset type here. Let me undo. The offset type, the default is offset. The other option that matches the preview offset shown in trueSpace as far as size is absolute. It gives a different effect if I bevel that. Oh, and I got a crash. Alright, restart trueSpace and try again. That's the deal with some of these tools, they just crash trueSpace. I'm going to load my special object from the library. Get my tools all set up again. Put up the Blender link. Go to Bevel. In edit mode. Do my selection. And get in tight. Okay, I'm going to just change it to 3. Give it an offset. And bevel. Okay, back to normal. Got the rounded bevel. Gonna undo that. Use the same settings. Absolute. And bevel. Oh, there's something strange going on there. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't behave properly. I'm just gonna select again and run it with the same settings. Okay, for this I'm going to try it without the segments for absolute. And that goes without crashing. Okay. But you can see it gets a different effect than if it was offset. I'll undo that. Change it back to offset, which I think is the best option. And you see the difference there. But yeah, tools aren't perfect. They might crash. So use with caution. Okay, I'm going to exit point edit mode. Don't need that anymore. I'm going to go back to the default tab and create a teapot. And I'm going to go over to miscellaneous, which is where the grid fill is. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to select some faces. In the front here. Maybe a few more faces. And delete them. Now I'm going to select the edges at the top and the bottom of the hole. If I use grid fill, it fills it in. So I'm going to undo that. You can also do it by selecting all the edges around the hole this method doesn't work as well because you have to set the span value properly. If you just do a grid fill now, it looks like this. A little weird. So undo that, and I figure there's 3 spans at the top, so maybe 3 will work. So to 3, do a grid fill, and that worked. If that hadn't worked, then it'd look the spans on the left and right hand sides and use those for the span value. And I'm going to show one more use case for that. I'll delete that, create a cylinder. Just give it 16 in the radial, and a few height just for the heck of it. I'm going to point edit mode. I'm going to select that top face and delete it. I'm going to reset the spans to the default value, and to use the edge loop to select the top face. If I use grid fill, it fills it across. Now if I undo that, I can increase the number of spans, maybe 4, and you get quads all the way across the top. Let's see, I think there was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, right. It has to be an even number of edges that are used for the grid tool. So if I go in here and say add a point, I have an odd number of edges across the top. If I try the grid fill, it does nothing. What you have to do in this case is go back to the selecting some of the edges on either side. In that case, I selected 3. Let's see what that does. Do a grid fill, and that kind of fills it in. But the point is, it works best if all the way around there's an even number of edges. If it's an odd number, it doesn't work, and you have to do some repairs like adding or removing points. And that's everything I wanted to cover for the bevel and grid fill tools. In the next video, I'll be covering the loop tools. Thanks for watching.